Thank you, everyone. All right, let's see if we, all right. So today I want to cover off on 3 different topics. So in the next 30 minutes, we'll go ahead and cover high level on these topics. There's a lot of information in this deck. My goal here is to not have you become monetization experts. My goal is to have you know enough to have walk away and have intelligent conversations with your teams about whether or not you're doing some of these initiatives, right? I know some of you for monetization use resellers or you use outsourced teams. You might have your own teams, right? They may be familiar with some of these strategies, but I'm hoping at least if you walk away, you'll be able to say, aha, I should check and see if I'm doing those things. I will also show a number of tools. A lot of them are free, which are great, since not all of them are free. But then this will be recorded in case you have any questions or reference, because there's a lot of information in this deck. So the first thing we'll cover off on is what I call the year of signals. Really funny, I made a presentation last year when I rejoined the Post about this being the year of signals, and everything that we've seen has proven out, and I'll explain what I mean when I get in that section. And then I'll cover some basic and advanced yield strategies that publishers should be thinking about, and then I'll cover off about some new industry initiatives that I think all publishers need to be aware of and that we need to be participating in. So first of all, let's talk about the year of signals. So I need to give some context by why this is important, okay? There are more ads on the internet today than there are buyers, okay? That is really important. And to illustrate this, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna pick on myself and show you the page on the Washington Post. Don't try and squint and look at that. That is the number of calls on the Washington Post page every time it loads to load an ad. I'm looking at my boss, Vineet, whose face just went like this. He hasn't seen this before. But anyway, this isn't all ads, by the way. The hop that you see on the second column is basically stuff moving server side. There's a lot of things on here too, like Google Analytics and Chartbeat and things like that. But a lot of this is ads, right? These are all the things that it takes to load an ad on a page. So you can see from one ad call, every single request gets duplicated over and over and over and over just to fill a single ad. You can imagine from the buy side, they see all of this as not a single impression, but multiple ad calls to fill a single ad, right? And just to be fair, here's a well-known UK publisher. It's nobody in this room, and I obfuscated who it is just so you can see what it is. I have friends who work here, so I'm not going to show you who the publisher is. But this is another example of a lot of ad calls on a page, right? So the context here, going back to the original slide, is there's just too much demand, okay? So your partners, your SSPs, the supply-side platforms, the ones that are monetizing your pages, they have to filter this out, okay? Queries per second, server-side calls, that's expensive. And so what they have to do is filter out all of the ad inventory that effectively have no signals on them because it's valueless, right? And they have to control their costs. Even companies like The Trade Desk, which is a buy-side tool, famously came out about, I think it's like 6 or 7 years ago, and said, you must put us in one path. Do not put us in many paths, because even they are concerned with QPS because this is a major cost center for them, right? So you are being throttled. That is the most important thing, and there are ways to combat being throttled, okay? And the answer to that, going back to the original part, is signals, right? You need to increase signals on your inventory. Before I get into important signals, additional context behind this, where we are at where we are today is because of the move to deprecate third-party cookies. Obviously, Google decided not to deprecate third-party cookies, but the push towards things like signal identifiers and other content signals has shifted the focus of a lot of ad tech vendors into utilizing that technologies, because a lot of it is server-side and it's not on the browser, which means you can't clear your cookies, right? You have to go to specific sites to opt out. So advertisers are relying more and more on these server-side signals, and so you need to make sure you are participating in them and sending those signals in order to show to buyers that your inventory is valuable. So let's kind of go through the list, right? So you have, first of all, slide on the right. This is a chart from a company called Sincera. There's a link on that. It's a free tool. You can all sign up to see it. It will give you some industry benchmarks and specs. So those identifiers on the right is actual live adoption rate amongst publishers. So if you're like, what IDs should I use, Jason? Well, there you go, right? Again, free tool, links in the slide, that anybody can use that. So the examples over here. What I would do is if you go back to your teams, I would be talking about let's audit what signals we're sending up. Content metadata is pretty simple. Is this mobile? Is this desktop? What is the size of the page, right? Those types of things, this video display. It's just ensuring that you're declaring your inventory correctly. Taxonomy is really important. If you're a news publisher in this room, all of your ad partners are declaring all of your inventory as just news, full stop. You have to go in and map your content to the individual classification. So in the example of sports, which is really funny, if you have sports on your site, you need to make sure that you tag it to the IAB taxonomy sports. Otherwise, buyers will see it as news, and as we all know, if people have blocks against hard news, you won't monetize as well. So you can control those signals. If you are not doing that today, it is being defaulted to hard news. Audience signals, those are different things. Like Google has something called PPID, which is, oh my goodness, publisher-provided identification signals. That's basically just an identifier for Safari so that people can do frequency capping, right? Send that up in the bid stream, you raise your Safari monetization. ID providers see chart on the right to see who you should work with. And then the biggest one of all is UID, right? It's a hashed email address. I won't comment on individual countries' privacy laws. Everybody has different ones on them. But if you can utilize this, this is by far and away the single most important ID that will lead to higher monetization. And it will basically, you don't need as many other ID providers if you can rely on UID. All the other IDs that you can work with is meant to replace the absence of UID. So these are the things that I would work on. And I put a caution here, by the way, your ad partners may be changing your declarations, and you should audit that too. And they're doing that because they get paid when they win. So they might take a display impression and say it's video, and then all of a sudden serve video, in-banner video in your ad. Buy side gets upset because they think they're buying video, and then they might block. So even though it technically, in the immediate term, leads to a short-term revenue uplift, you should really audit those signals because long-term you will get blocked and it will lead to signal degradation. Okay, so the other thing to think about is buyers are scoring you. So not only are you talking about signals on your inventory, you have to then look at how buyers are looking at you. And here's just a sample of some of the tools out there. The ones in green with the green background, if you can see it, are free tools. Trade Desk came up with something called PubDesk. If you use their OpenPath product, they'll give you a free login. It will show you how your inventory is being judged, right? Are your ads to content ratio too high, too low? Is your refresh too high, too low? Log into this, use that information to make changes. Amazon just did the same thing with their thing called Signal IQ. Jounce, paid service. That is an aggregate of all buy-side DSPs, all buy-side data. They will tell you if you are cheap reach, if you are, there's a ton of different categories. What you don't want to be is cheap reach, right? So make sure you optimize your signals so that you aren't cheap reach. Scope 3, carbon emissions. This is slowly going away, but something worth paying attention to. A lot of the agencies have green initiatives. If you have a terrible carbon score, and that goes back to all the calls on page, agencies will start to not buy you. Okay, so again, more scores you need to optimize towards. We're all aware of this brand safety, right? Audit your brand safety scores. Hilariously, a friend of mine works at golf.com and told me he was blocked by buyers because the word Titleist, the first 3 letters, which I will not say out loud, caused them to get blocked, right? And that's just, I was floored that our brand safety vendors are still so bad that that the word Titleist would be blocked from buyers. So in my previous life, I worked in a gaming and entertainment company. We had a similar things. You can reach out to DV and IAS and ask them to change the scores, right, if you work with them. That's important because brand safety blocks will also cause your scores, your rates to drop if you are monitoring them. And then the new one, attention metrics. This is basically scores. This is companies going to agencies saying, hey, did you interact with my ad? It sounds great, but in practice, it's not, right? Viewability sounded great when we did viewability, but it caused us to all put sticky ads in place, in-your-face intrusive ads to game those scores. Just cautionary tale about this. This is what this might lead to, so be very cautious as you're approaching attention metrics. But the buy side is being enamored by this right now, so this is another score we have to worry about. So in summary, take control of your inventory. I kind of just covered off on all of this before, right? Check your brand safety scores. Make sure your inventory classifications are okay, content categories, you'll see the list here. Just have your teams do an audit. And if you're working with a partner that has no idea what I'm talking about, you might want to take a look at different partners out there, because this is something that should be first and foremost for a lot of monetization partners. And I already covered off on this. It's kind of like the cautionary tale of scoring. These are really about metrics that sound good on paper but are terrible in practice, right? So that is the year of signals. There are, again, a lot of tools out there to help you with this. A lot of them are in this deck. And then if you have any questions about other, you can feel free to chat with me during the happy hour. So now we're going to move on to yield optimization. I told you there's a lot of information in this deck. Okay, so we're going to cover off on, we just covered off on signals. Now I'll walk you through kind of like the basic yield strategies and then get into some more advanced yield strategies, okay? So basics. I wondered whether or not I should put this in on the far left, but viewability. The reason why I bring this up, because I think I've been talking about this for a decade now, is that publishers still aren't focused on this, right? Viewability is extremely important. If you have an ad unit on your page that is 30% or lower, it is costing you more money to have that ad than it is making you. And the reason why is because that performance is being averaged across all of your ads on your page, and it is dragging down your CPMs. There are only about 3 ad partners that I am aware of that can break out performance by individual spot on the page. The rest of them, it's all an average, right? So you have to be aware of that. The sweet spot, if you have, if you're just a programmatic only publisher, is 50% or higher. Once you cross 50%, you get agency, you unlock agency demand. That's a minimum threshold for them. If you have direct sales, then you need to be above 70%. For programmatic only publishers, the jump from 50 to 70, I haven't seen that math prove out, meaning the increase in rates does not outweigh the loss in inventory from going to 70%. So you have to make your own individual determination on that. Performance, your ad tech code on your page is extremely important. It needs to be fast. Obviously, Core Web Vitals is something that's going to affect your search score, even though that is becoming less and less relevant to us every day. But the other part to speed that most people don't realize is that your browser is filtering out ads if there's too much weight on the page. My last publisher at Gaming and Entertainment, before we fixed the ad code, the page crashed every 10 times without fail. That is lost revenue. And publishers that I know who focused on this and made sure that their code speed improves have seen like 10 to 15% just render rates improve. So your ad inventory can go up by 10 to 15% because it loaded on time, right? So please don't forget about these 2 basic tenets, essentially. Those are the first 2 things you should focus on if you have those issues, because that just will lead to revenue uplift right then and there. Yield, dynamic flooring. There are a lot of dynamic flooring vendors out there. I suggest testing them. Floor AdWords, please. Google just, because of the Google Remedies trial, allowed reflooring of AdWords, which allows you to capture more margin against that demand. That change was only about 2 months ago. So if you're not flooring AdWords right now, please do. It's an instant revenue lift. But third-party tools work better because you can floor in real time. And the tools will make sure you don't have market collapse on your own site. So that can lead to some lift as well. Some vendors are free, some are paid, and will take revenue share on the uplift. That's another strategy that works. Quick note about testing. Learn from people who've made these mistakes. First of all, make sure you are checking for selection bias. So when you set up a cookie sample, like I want to do a test to 10% of the audience, right? Imagine you have a population of 100 people, 50 men, 50 women. If I randomly select people, I would expect to get 5 women, of 10, I would expect to get 5 women and 5 men. But if I get 7, 10, and 3 women, that is not representative of what's going to happen on your test and will skew your results. Please ensure that you are not creating selection bias in your A/B test. Otherwise, you have to throw out your results. The other thing, and this mistake, on week 1 at my entertainment and gaming company, I had to walk into the CTO's office and tell him you have to throw out all your testing results for the entire year, because you need to create testing IDs for your monetization partners. And the reason why, go back to the 90-10 split, if you don't create a separate ID and flag to your buyers, this is a separate experience with different metrics, it averages it all together. And therefore, the buy side has no idea that this experience is any different. You will not see any change. And every test you run you need to throw out those results. So learn from me, learn from other publishers that I've seen that have done this. This is a mistake I've seen. It will save you a lot of time and heartache and allow you to actually have successful tests. Okay. Supply side optimization. All I will say here is that if you have fill problems, add resellers to your, it's called your ads.txt file. If you don't have fill problems, remove them, okay? Direct pass to agencies and buyers, generally speaking, do good things for you. It improves run rate and improves bid rates. But if you have fill challenges, this is particularly prevalent in video and in app, use as many resellers as you think possible. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit more advanced stuff here. So one of the things that we try to do, going back to the speed conversation, is optimize our partners. So what you're looking at here on the left, yes, the left is fast bid response, the right, the x-axis, and the right is slow, so this is how fast your ad partner responds. The top is a good rate, high CPM, and low CPM. So everything on the lower right quadrant, those partners you eliminate. Those are the ones that respond very slowly with low rates, get rid of them, right? The ones with high rates and slow response time, you should work with them to speed them up. Obviously, your sweet spot here is the upper left, and the lower left is ones that you might want to consider talking to them and saying, hey, you respond quickly, but I need you to bid higher, right? Generally speaking, I put all my partners on notice if they are less than 5% of my revenue. It's amazing what happens when you have that conversation where you're about to cut them, because all of a sudden, revenue goes up. And you ask them, what did they do? They said, nothing. I've never gotten a reason. But just simply putting them on notice, they'll do something on the back end and they'll send revenue your way, right? So don't be afraid to put your partners on notice, because that works as well. I'm worried I'm overloading everybody with information. I'm sorry, but I'll try to get through this. The other thing here is do not institute a one-size-fits-all solution, right? If you have good monetization partners in the UK that don't work in the US, don't fire them all globally, right? A lot of publishers have a single setup for desktop and mobile, the same partners, and if you want to add a partner, they fire it over and over and over. You need to think about this in different environments, right? I have partners that monetize better in the US. Set up a configuration that only fires those partners in the US. If you have UK-specific partners, set a separate configuration and fire just the UK partners. This also applies to desktop versus mobile. Slower connection speeds means you need to set higher timeouts. If you're setting it globally all across the board, it means you're under-monetizing desktop and you're well, I guess you're just under-monetizing both, right? But these things need to be considered because it's really, really important and will improve your monetization. Okay, traffic shaping. I was wondering if I should put this in because I think people were just like, what is going on here? So traffic shaping, going back to that throttling problem. This is actually a new feature that was released in Prebid 11. So again, check with your monetization partners or see if your teams are using Prebid 11. What this allows you to do is actually reduce ad requests to your partners. Now, why is that important? Because if you have a low bid rate, you get throttled. Seeing some eyes like, hold on, I'm trying to make sure everybody follows. So if you basically have a partner that doesn't bid on you at all, they throttle you. If you reduce the amount of ad requests you send to them, your win rates go up, right? And then all of a sudden their algorithms say like, hey, this is good inventory. They bid more, right? So I would take a look at this feature. Again, I don't want to get into how it's done. Some conversation to have with your monetization teams to see if you're doing this. It can help with that. And then finally, multi-format ad requests. We're having this discussions now. This is very new. The idea behind this is I will take the highest rate of any ad no matter what it is. So if I have an ad unit, display or video, I'll send out a request for both a display and a video ad request. Whichever is the highest one, I serve it, right? But in that case, you're declaring that it's video. You're not allowing the SSP to make it up, okay? Again, please refer to the slides. I'm going through a lot of information, but these are tactics, again, that you should have conversations with your buy-side tools. Okay, whew. That's yield. Okay, I'll stand for questions afterward. Now, this is really important. I do want to cover off on something, and some of you have actually seen this presentation before. Who here is familiar with the ad context protocol, the AdCP agentic buying and selling? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. Yes. You need to be aware of this. So the ad context protocol was announced in November of last year. Simple concept. At least it's intended to be a simple concept. The buy side sets up a buy side agentic sales agent, buyer agent, excuse me, and publishers will set up an agentic sell side agent. These two things talk to each other, right? You describe your inventory, and by the way, it's not live yet. Tests are happening as we speak, and I'll tell you why this is important to know about it. But the idea is that, and this is good for publishers, right? The agencies will be able to hop over. In fact, let me get to this here. Hold on. This is an eyesore. This is our market. Marketer on the left, publisher on the right. Every company in the middle is taking a piece of the dollar as it goes from left to right. Let me make this easier on your eyes, right? So these are the categories of publishers. This is what the ads context protocol is intending to do. It's taking the dollar directly from the agency, bypassing everything in the middle, and going directly to you. The concept is that once the buy side reads your sell side agent and says, like, I want this inventory, they will RFP you. They are basically trying to automate the buying process so that it is easier for agencies to discover your inventory and then reach out to you with RFPs. Okay, again, it's very new. It came out in November. A test was done with this. There have been very few tests, but I know, and I'll get to why this is important again. The test saw an 80% reduction in buy-side costs for the buyer, which they love, of course, which meant they were able to buy 40% more impressions, and then their effective CPM on the buy side was lower by 30%. So you can imagine buyers are really excited about this, and if the buyers get excited about it, we have to get excited about it, right? Because this is something that they are going to do. Here's the problem. Everybody in the middle is like, where is my money, right? So they are inserting themselves into the conversation, and this is the scenario we're starting to face today, where you have the buyer agent, and now everybody in the middle is setting up seller-side agents, and they're coming to approach you to say, can I set up a sell-side agent on your behalf, okay? So once we had this idea 3 months ago of like agent direct to buyer, and now all the ad tech in the middle is saying, hold on, I want a piece of that pie too, so they're setting up these sell-side agents, and it is basically, we are being disintermediated in real time as we speak, as this format is being developed. I have been watching this. I also I run the product management committee at pre-bid for the publisher committee. I sit on the board. So part of what I've been trying to do is educate the publisher community about this, because standards are being developed as we speak, and we need a lot more publisher feedback about this right now, because if we don't, by the time this is ready, we may not be, we'll be back to this craziness where everybody's taking a piece of the pie in the middle, right? So we need to give feedback on all of this. So even I have questions that are not answered yet, right? So this is just a window into the types of questions I'm asking some of these people, or like, will we get access to how often we're recommending? So I saw a live demo of this. You go into a ChatGPT or Claude style LLM and you say, I am trying to reach this particular audience, and it recommended 3 publishers, and that was it, just 3 publishers. And so now I'm saying to myself, are we gonna get reporting that says I've been recommended this many times? Am I gonna find out how often I was bought versus, what was my take rate, right? Because we're automating this, right? It's moving from people to agentic. What are agencies looking for, right? Because our jobs as monetization expert is to really do monetization and optimizations and try to pivot to ensure that we have what the buyers are looking for. I'm worried that this is going to become a black box where we don't know what buyers are looking for, and then we don't have any action items in this, right? So I'm pushing for more transparency, where the buy side is just pushing forward on making this protocol happen, right? Additional standards, like if we are in a world where like there's more seller agents than a single publisher, excuse me, do we have to have, like, in the same way with SSPs, do we have to have a direct versus reseller relationship and say, like, hey, this agent is authorized to sell my inventory, this other one is not, right? And if this is where we're going, I'm going to heavily push for this, and I'm looking for publisher support. The more we speak about this, the quicker it'll happen. And then there's other questions like data privacy, right? You might get RFP'd about a new car from Honda, and it's under NDA, and so some of the brands are asking, like, do I drop this into an LLM? Does it make it public? So there's, just to illustrate that there's a lot of work that still needs to happen in order for this to become live. But I think it's important for you all to participate. You don't have to launch the a sell-side agent just yet. It'll make you $40 if you do, so I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but please pay attention to these specs. Prebid owns the sell-side spec. See what they're releasing. IAB Tech Lab is also working on this. We need your feedback, right? Because this is the time for us to really define the rules, because we can win with this new solution by reducing fees, right? And then just in case you're like, Jason, that's probably a US thing. I did this slide for some of the LATAM folks in here. There are a lot of companies across the world that are participating. These are the list in EMEA. There's also a list in APAC, list in LATAM, and the one I want to draw your attention to is in the lower right. WPP, a major holding company, is all in on the AdCP. I was literally in a conversation yesterday with the head of global investment who asked publishers to raise their hands. Who's ready for me to use this to buy them this week? Just to give you an idea. Now, that's a test, right? These standards are being set. But when you have a major holding company, we're not talking about just a silly little agency, a major holding company that is pushing this initiative, this is going to happen really, really fast. So again, this should be on your radar. There's nothing to do today at this moment, but please pay attention to it or tell your teams to have focus on it, right? Because this is really going to change how we buy and sell. So, in conclusion, focus on signals, audit your inventory, look at how you're being declared, take a look at some of the yield strategies I suggested, and then really, truly, please, please, please participate in these standards, because our voices together matter a lot more than our voices independently. That's it. Questions?
Question.
My question will be really simple. Do you do audits for other medias?
Do I say that?
If you do audits, if you could come and take a look at our...
can I do audits?
Yes, I'd love to. Because there's so many things in there, and I'm not in charge of the ad tech stack on my company, but I know that there's so many issues like viewability that are like concerning, but we all are navigating in complete fog. We don't know where to go, and our partners say, oh, you should do this and should do that. I just feel that we're adding complexity over complexity, and in the end, I'm not sure we're making more money, so we need help.
So this is why I bring this up again. I'm not asking you all to remember all this. I'm not asking you all to become an expert in all this. But these are conversations you should have, right? Here's the list you should go back to whether it's your own team or your reseller or your sales house that is handling your inventory, and ask them if they're thinking about these things, really. Because even when I look at the sales houses, only like the top 2 or 3 are doing these things, right? Like secondary sales houses are not, right? If they aren't, focus on it. You can also join Prebid, right? It's an open source community. I run the publisher product management committee every other week. Like, we talk about these things all the time. So it's not free to join, but like, you can use Prebid for free, right? But if you want to participate in the conversations, do that. There are also other industry groups like Beeler Tech, right, that are always free to publishers. I recommend joining. Rob Beeler's awesome. I work with him very closely. That will help you connect you with people that can. So like, yes, I could, but I also have a day job.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Hi there, yeah, over here, sorry. So yeah, I'm translating Andrea Lopez-Vario's question. So her question is, we met recently at DC. I hope you remember that. So Google, in their last update, they eliminated the AMP requirement. That meant that last week we measured the speed for our LATAM and Spain traffic, and we saw a drop in that. At the time, you said that you didn't have an answer for this question, but what do you suggest? Do you have an answer for this now?
So I'm actually surprised. So AMP, I have only known a few publishers left on AMP, and I know that the ones left on AMP made really good CPMs because, interesting. So the publishers that I am aware of that were still on AMP were making really good CPMs because there was still buyers buying that channel specifically, and as the supply contracted, their rates went up. But, and I apologize if I missed whether or not your CPMs went up or down. What I would do is, we can have a one-off conversation if you want. I would focus on that speed, and I'm not sure when that happened, but hopefully if the signals in the inventory get sent out properly, it should recover. So we can have a more direct conversation about that use case.